Hey guys, welcome back. As promised, we're going to be reviewing Kknowly's Payday 3 The Art of Going Loud video. As promised in the Kknowly's first video, I said I would be reviewing his other two videos when they came out, and this one has just come out, so here we are with the analysis of Payday 3 Loud gameplay.
The continuation of my Payday 3 hands-on series, where I'll be talking you through everything I was able to gather from my time with the game in Stockholm and London. Today the focus is going to be on loud gameplay, my favourite approach to heisting in Payday 2 that's now been brought into the modern era of Payday 3 with far greater mechanical depth than I ever imagined. If you want to hear more about the game's menus, difficulty and customization options, check out my first Payday 3 hands-on video, and be sure to stay tuned to my deep dive on stealth, the most updated style of play in a video that's already live for patrons. Obviously, loud heisting is highly contingent on the gunplay, which has been an absolute highlight for me in Payday 3 so far. Every weapon I've used has looked and felt responsive. Animation-wise, I am in love with the game, and there's just the right amount of kick to guns to make them feel weighty and impactful. Weight is something that's just inherent to Payday 3. Movement feels more purposeful, with vaulting and sliding giving you greater tactical options, whilst firing a weapon feels more like a crime, to be honest, which just lends a lot of purpose to your actions, and at least for me, really adds to the immersion when playing the game. I think the way environments react to your bullets and explosives also assists in making the basic gunplay land. Cops will be flown backwards by your rounds and react quite realistically to being shot and shot at, taking cover more actively than we're used to seeing. Of course, the secret sauce is still the helmets flying, which adds even more satisfaction to a perfectly executed headshot.
So just smarter cop AI pretty much, along with keeping the helmets. Love to see that. Helmets flying was always fun.
For me, the gunplay feels that bit more grounded, which is suitable for the slightly lower population maps and more tactically aware enemies that will keep you on your toes and not just relying on a decent aim. Although you can practice that aim, as all weapons will carry their own individual recoil patterns, emphasising that focus on gaining an affinity for a specific playstyle and weapon choice. Melee has been heavily simplified though, with only the gun bash returning on launch. However, this has far greater knockback and stun potential, meaning for once it's actually worth weaving melee attacks into your close quarters gameplay.
Only weapon but for melee, so pretty much Payday the Heist melee. Not really any complaints. The Payday 2 melee system was really just unbalanced. There was pretty much an objective best for whatever you were going for, so the fact that they got rid of it, nothing wrong with that, so good to see.
What I think is so impressive about Payday 3's loud gameplay though is that gunfights are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what's important to being successful on a heist. Mechanically, there's so much depth to how you choose to build and play around certain in-heist features that it's equally important that you play with strategy and tactics in mind. Hostages and civilians have been expanded upon massively. Not only will they act like a real human might in response to witnessing 4 masked criminals on a heist, they're also crucial to surviving on harder difficulties. The negotiation period can be extended by drip feeding them to the police, allowing you to get a head start on objectives, but it's worth mentioning this can't be entirely abused, as once you head outside or start shooting, negotiations will break down. This is
something that's just interesting. You can't really just abuse this negotiation period to just run out and get a bunch of kills. As soon as you attack someone, it's over. The negotiation period is over, so you kind of just have to stay inside and shove the civs out before you can actually get the increased anticipation or negotiation phase. So just no abusing of said negotiation phase.
There's also a trade-off, as you'll want to retain as many civs as possible for their build synergies, allowing you to trade them between assaults for additional healing supplies, which are few and far between otherwise, or use the new body shield mechanic. When holding a civilian or captured guard, the police will avoid firing rounds at you, at least from the front, and will instead try and charge and melee you to set the civ free. They'll also limit their use of explosives just for being in the vicinity of civilians, again a huge advancement in the AI and more reason to hold on to and protect these guys who can be moved around the map in groups far easier than ever before. If that's not incentive.
The fact that civs can be moved a lot easier is nice. Civs were always a bitch to try and move around and deal with in Payday 2. Payday the Heist, you just outright couldn't move them, and in Payday 2 the AI was so jank you might as well just leave them where they are. So, the ability to move them around and just get clumps of civilians all together for when you want to trade or to more easier just watch over them. It's just a nice quality of life thing that's really convenient to have.
Enough, killing civs yourself will result in a much sterner penalty, taking a percentage of your heist split depending on how many you shoot. This caps out at a whopping 70% of your financial reward, meaning no more, no Russian for the Payday gang.
Again, it's just removing money. I don't know if they're going to add to the custody timer that I assume you get in this game. And if they do, I hope it's closer to like Payday the Heist's timer. Like 10 seconds instead of Payday 2's absurd 30. Because like 30 seconds is barely one assault break in Payday 2, so just the removal of the civ timers would just be a nice quality of life thing. Also, at some point, just killing civs won't matter, because at some point there will be enough money to go around that you just won't have to worry about civs. Be that after hundreds of hours of just grinding money, or once you have everything, or whatnot, at some point, even the 70% reduction cut in your gain, monetary gain, won't actually change anything to do with the game, so...
However, the grenade key has been moved to G, which will be a strange change for veteran players to get used to, and might result in at least one messy throw whilst getting used to the new keybinds. Fortunately, these are entirely customizable in the menu. As I've already touched on, these simple mechanics tend to converge into some impressively emergent gameplay, as you can find yourself using civs like a riot shield when caught out low on ammo, and pushing as a squad behind one of your crew, moving slowly forward with the hostage. The old Uno reverse trick on shield type units. Of course, a lot of these moments are contingent upon playing in a group, so what happens when you're forced into solo play, and how do the bots hold up? Well, as a big solo player myself, this was an initial focus. So far, I've found the crew AI to act a lot more like real players than what we've been used to. They're not the ridiculous bullet sponges from Payday 2, meaning they will go down when faced with onslaughting specials.
So now your AI, the teammate AI, is now brains over brawn, so not bullet sponges, but they're a lot more helpful. I don't know if they're capable of actually doing objectives, or at least helping with objectives, but he says later in the video that they can drop deployables, which is just very nice.
But at the same time, they tend to be a bit more logical in their positioning and approach to combat, sticking closer to teammates in my experience. One amazing addition is that each crewmate will drop the deployable you most need at that time during any break in the assault, making them much more useful in terms of resource conservation than we've ever seen before. However, I'd say Payday 3 really is built around playing online cooperatively. Communication is key on certain objectives, and some simply require more human players to fully achieve, such as defusing die packs that are placed on the money bundles in the bank heist. I'm happy to see that solo is still going to be viable, but will be mostly looking to squad up, especially after the runs I had playing with the boys in Stockholm.
That's fine. Solo's never really been the correct way to play either of the Payday games before, so nothing wrong with trying to make people play co-op. So nothing too wrong here. Obviously solo's going to be a greater challenge no matter what game you play, so just, yeah, to be expected, honestly.
Touching back on deployables in Payday 3, they'll be familiar to many of you as the medic bag, armor bag, ammo bag, and sentry turret. Running with a good balance of these is absolutely essential, hence why I imagine the crew AI were designed to carry them, as health and armor are very hard to come by naturally. I do love though that if you search heist well enough, you can find small ammo and medical deposits in logical locations native to the map. The sentry gun...
That would be nice. Just having extra resources is always a nice thing to find.
Gun is obviously going to be the most divisive addition on a team, but I found it to be reasonably well balanced when combined with skills for at least one player to bring along. Instead of being destructible and ammo contingent, these things now just overheat, meaning they'll be more consistently available to the team throughout a heist.
So do turrets just not get destroyed, or do they just like overheat? Because if they don't get destroyed, then they'd be really strong. By just slap one in a corner, make sure that it's fine, and then just make sure that no shields get in front of it to stop it entirely. So just shoot the shields and the sentry gun will take care of everything else.
With skills you can even place 2 at once, but the key is that much like everything else in the game, there are checks and balances for them, with shields simply taking up all their attention and blocking them out infinitely if you don't prioritise taking them down. You'll also be giving up a huge resource for team survivability, so the trade-off is quite extreme. As I've already alluded to, throwables are huge in Payday 3. Not only can they be replenished via ammo bags, which I think is an excellent change, there are skill builds centered around their usage, meaning more often than not, they come in completely clutch. The smoke is probably the pick of the bunch, working like a much more impactful Sicario grenade in Payday 2, but don't sleep on any of the other options available to you. Frags, stuns and throwing knives all have skills that impact their usefulness, making them a noticeable part of any playstyle you choose to specialise in. Overkill weapons are the final build decision you will be making. Right now the choice is...
So, throwables are strong. Nothing much to say until we actually see the throwables. The smoke is just appears to be a Sicario smoke, according to what I've heard. It just reduces cop accuracy while they're standing in it or something. Don't know exactly what it does. I assume you're gonna have your regular frag grenade. You're gonna have the knives. He said something else. I didn't entirely catch it.
Their usefulness, making them a noticeable part of you. Frags, stuns and throwing knives all have skills.
So a stunning grenade. So like the electric grenades. I can see why the smoke would be the strongest, although the stun grenades could have some variance as well as frags, because you actually get some back when you replenish ammo, so that's pretty nice, just having throwables be useful again, as opposed to just having one being the best.
Skills that impact their usefulness, making them a noticeable part of any playstyle you choose to specialise in. Overkill weapons are the final build decision you will be making. Right now the choice is just between a high-powered penetrative sniper rifle with a thermal targeting scope and the War Machine style piglet grenade launcher that is ideal for taking out groups. These have limited ammo that cannot be refilled and can only be accessed by filling up the overkill bar on your HUD, allowing you to call in the weapon.
That's an interesting way to go around it. You get a super overpowered weapon after filling up a meter and then just calling it in. He said that there's a sniper and the piglet. I don't know which I would be going for. I would have to test them out, but the piglet doesn't require you to aim, so I would probably be going with the piglet. Plus it would deal a lot more crowd AoE, so I think the piglet could have its uses, but the sniper would also be really strong because, well, snipers have always been strong, so.
It's then dropped from a chopper, meaning they can only be recovered from outside.
Also, this is what we saw in the trailer, where we thought that you were calling in the escape chopper by yourself using the phone, but I wonder if there's footage in here somewhere, but you're actually calling in the chopper to drop you an overkill weapon, not the escape, so that's definitely an interesting way to go around it, because then you have to go get it before you can actually use it, so it's high risk for high reward. Definitely a good idea, as opposed to just giving you an overpowered weapon for getting kills.
Which will be a bit of a chore to secure, but let me tell you, at least as far as the sniper is concerned, it's absolutely worth it as one of the key elements to clearing heists on overkill. This thing hits brutally hard, seemingly three-shotting dozers, penetrates walls, and can land massive collaterals. I found the piglet to be a little less consistent, but still excellent, especially when you land direct hits with it. Otherwise, the grenades it fires will be on set timers that cops can often move out of the way of, unless you have a contact grenade specific skill. It's a fun system that allows the devs to add those more zany and over-the-top Payday 2 weapons without having to worry about nerfing them in line with the base weapon roster.
That's very true. Just having, those strong weapons added to the game that you can still play with without them requiring to be balanced, beyond just making them an overkill weapon instead of a regular weapon.
That's it for most of your tools when it comes to setting up for a loud heist, but there's so much more to think about and utilise when within one. I can't wait to see how creative people get, especially on the hardest difficulties. However, what I haven't touched on yet are the SWAT units that I'll be trying to get in your way throughout. As we've seen before, there are standard and heavy SWAT units who present different base level challenges, but in Payday 3, they're backed up by a plethora of specials who can be seen across all difficulties. Starting with the standard variants, hostage rescue teams have returned in this lighter grey attire, and just like old times, will focus out your remaining hostages, aiming to free them between waves.
So keep an eye on your hostages while there's these tans around. Noted.
With hostages being much more important, these guys are hugely impactful now and will have to be prioritised so you can continue to benefit from your hostage supply. The newly added gold helmet wearing cousins are the Sabotage Squad. Instead of targeting you or your hostages, they'll focus down objectives and unguarded loot, slowing down your...
That's a really creative enemy to add. That's honestly really cool, the fact that they have special teams just to slow down your completions. They slow down objectives, sounds like they move loot away. So these would be high priority if you're in the middle of any objectives that you don't want to be stopped or something. Definitely a fun addition. Good job, Overkill.
Your rate of completion and generally frustrating heist progress. That moves us on to the specials, starting with the shield. As predicted, shield tactics are much more varied in Payday 3, with cops actually making use of shields to push and breach rooms tactically. If you get too close, they will also bash and stun you with the riot shield, making the usual shield surfing approach from Payday 2 not possible here. Instead, you can look to strafe this attack as it opens them up for a side flank, or simply just aim to dome them through the vision hole in the shield, causing them to recoil backwards and expose their face. Another option is to toss your...
So shields are both weaker and stronger. They're weaker as in you can just straight up shoot through the shield if you have decent enough aim. So they're weaker health wise, but they're stronger in the fact that they're more intelligent and they just have better AI in general.
Throwable behind them as they will turn to block the impact, giving you a chance to fire at the back of their head. Honestly though, shields don't hit that hard and really do act as facilitators for the rest of their team, meaning you should avoid being sucked into how much of an alluring target they now are. One unit type you will want to quickly focus down though is the Grenadier, who will cover the map in highly damaging poison gas if you let him run rampant for long. Within this gas you'll take some serious damage over time, have your vision disrupted and be unable to sprint, making them some of the top targets to deal with on the map.
Having the unable to sprint part is definitely interesting, and they're definitely meant to be area denial enemies instead of damage enemies, which is Payday 2 definitely needs a better one after the absolute catastrophe that SWAT turrets were in Payday 2, so definitely an interesting addition. If they do too much damage, I can see how they would be annoying to play around, but if they do like moderate damage and just make it hard to see along with the no sprint, definitely a good addition.
Fortunately, they're very loud and distinct, making it fairly easy to seek them out, at which point you can shoot at their bandolier to explode them with their remaining gas canisters, also dealing big damage to any cops in their vicinity. Tasers have also developed a few new tricks in Payday 3, whilst also being renamed to Zappers. These guys can hold you in place just like old times and waste your ammo, although they seem to require more prep time to make that happen now, meaning you should have an opportunity to shoot the electric flask on their belt to explode and stun any enemies in their vicinity. Do keep in mind, whilst this is a weakness of the Zappers, they won't die instantly from this tactic. They can now also drop shock mines at highly trafficked locations to try to catch heisters unaware as they run towards objectives or along usual escape routes.
So pretty much regular tasers with a new weak point and this new ability to drop the shock mines, which are interesting because they're just another area denial tool that the cops can use. I wonder if they are disableable, like if you shoot them and you're not in range, do they just go off? Can you pick them up or what? So the ability to disarm them would definitely make them slightly less impactful, because then you wouldn't have to worry about them so much, provided that you're like actually paying attention. So, interesting addition.
Meaning you will need to watch your step from now on. Snipers offer a familiar challenge over range, probably being the least altered unit type, although I found their lasers generally easier to track, and have noticed they appear to take longer to shoot, making them less unfair to deal with for most builds. If you do get hit though, prepare to lose all your armor in one go, meaning another big dent into your resources. Cloakers have potentially had the biggest glow.
Snipers, no change really. They just hurt more if you get hit with the new armor system. Beyond that, there's really not much changed. Also, I really like this cloaker redesign. He looks really badass.
Up between games with an awesome new edgelord design and a pair of retractable batons fashioned like Assassin's Creed Hidden Blades. Not only do they have many new traversal options to get the drop on heists, including the ability to wall run as in Payday Heist, their new takedown works completely differently to Payday 2's.
So, to get the kick, they are a lot stronger, but once the actual kick happens, it gets a lot weaker. It's about to explain how the kick itself actually works. It's definitely a lot weaker, and if your teammates are able to kill the cloaker, then there's really not too much damage done beyond, well, the damage you took. And I wonder if there's still that, if there's 3 people down or in custody, the cloaker will never kick the last person. Like, if you're in solo, the cloaker won't kick you. Because that made cloakers a lot less challenging in Payday 2 as opposed to Payday the Heist, where they will just come out of nowhere and kick you with no sound. So, it only depends on how they choose to balance a cloaker, beyond what we've already been told.
Caught out upon hearing the iconic sound effect, after a severe beating, which will deal direct health damage, they can actually cuff you, leading to certain custody shortly after the big.
So it appears it will still have the sound, which will be nice to help find them. And it sounds like they go straight through armor and deal direct health damage, as opposed to just beating up on your armor before going to beat up on your health. So definitely dangerous if they are left unchecked. So just focus them once you see them, because chances are they still don't have too much health compared to all the other specials, just due to how they are made to play.
The caveat is that if a teammate drops the cloaker brutalizing you, you'll immediately get to your feet without needing to use up a team revive or down, which is a superb change in my opinion. That's not all these guys can do now though, as if left unattended, your entire equipment and supply will never be safe, as cloakers carry acid, which can be used to destroy place deployables if you don't interrupt them.
This is a really cool addition. Cloakers have a secondary objective where they just destroy your deployables. So you really just cannot leave them unchecked. If you hear a cloaker, you have to kill it, otherwise your deployables will get destroyed, and well, you have the potential of having a bunch of people ended up in custody.
This makes the placement of deployables a much more relevant and tactical decision in Payday 3. Of course, we also see bulldozers return who feel like absolute heist changes if you don't focus them down. Their charge makes them much faster over ground and difficult to just beam in the helmet, and the usual Payday 2 strategy of getting up close and personal to focus down that faceplate is not as effective, bearing in mind trading damage in Payday 3 is far more problematic without regenerating armor. Instead, you're going to either want an overkill weapon or your entire team to focus down these guys who regularly wield dominantly powerful close-range auto shotties.
So, a lot more like Payday the Heist dozers, except slightly more dangerous if they actually get to shoot you. Lots of health, according to TheKknowly's at least, so just play around cover when you're fighting them and you should be good.
Finally, we have another new enemy type which you haven't seen in action yet, but will be game-changing on harder difficulties. The SWAT antenna is a van that will drive in and hide at the outskirts of any heist, functioning as a permanent boon to all other unit types that will call an endless assault that spawns other dangerous units more frequently. It also pays to carry a long-range option within your crew to deal with this specifically, as it's often found way out in the distant corners of the map. The current missing unit types are Medic.
SWAT antenna just triggers an infinite assault. Definitely interesting addition. Again, gonna have to figure out how it actually works. Like, is it as soon as it arrives, infinite assault until it's destroyed? And that's how I would assume it works. And yeah, just interesting new enemy that you're gonna have to figure out how to work around. So just kill it and you should be good. I also wonder if it forces a fade, or if it just continues off where the assault would have been if it hadn't arrived.
And SWAT van turrets, to which I say, good riddance. Honestly, turrets do not suit the pacing of this game, and individual cops are much harder to take down in Payday 3, which would result in medics being exceptionally problematic to balance. What I absolutely love about all units that have made it into the game is the consistent counterplay and relevance that will have to any heist. Everything has its checks and balances, and the more experience you get with the game, the more you'll understand how to counter each special and more efficiently conquer each heist. As I've already mentioned, heist tactics are going to be huge when within a heist. Knowing when to group, where to place equipment, use throwables, and also split up will be essential for completion.
So definitely a lot more co-op required. You can't just kind of run off by yourself, do whatever, and literally nothing has changed. You have to actually work together to complete the heist, which will be definitely an interesting challenge, because if you're playing with friends, yeah, it'll be easy to set out, coordinate, but if you're playing in pubs, which I assume Payday 3 will have, you're going to have to hope you don't get any trolls or anything that would be able to disrupt the heist flow.
Over-relying on staying together will leave you exposed to poison gas, and the units sent out to disrupt your objectives and hostages, whereas splitting up too frequently will leave teammates at the mercy of cloakers and shot mines, meaning you'll have to play with a fair bit of fluidity, pragmatism, and guile to try and handle all threats at once, and I love it. Flanking now feels so rewarding, as cops tend to group up and take cover around doorways to look to breach heisters with sheer numbers and flashbangs, but if a single heister slips out and comes from behind, they can easily catch the cops unaware and mid-execution. Communicating these plays is also essential to their success, hence why I felt like I was playing a competitive shooter at times when trying to tackle overkill. That shouldn't be off-putting for more casual players though, as there's still a ton of fun and charm to be found if you're looking for more of a laid-back experience. The jank of Payday remains, with crazy ragdolls, hilarious voice lines, and that same sense of humour you should be used to from...
That's good. Having too serious of a game would definitely ruin the vibe that Payday is, so just having that more just joking around side it's just really nice to have back. As long as it's not taken 100% serious all the time, it's definitely gonna be a lot more fun.
From the franchise. Whilst I've been emphasising the massive tactical improvements to the game, don't fear, the fun factor is still absolutely there, and Payday 3 doesn't take itself seriously at all times. Many of those memorable moments I keep emphasising come from silly little interactions you'd never expect, and with stealth now flowing far better into loud, hopefully there will be more laughter than anguish when someone slips up in this Payday generation. However, I think players...
Yeah, that's true. In Payday 2, you mess up stealth, you either restart or you suffer through loud. Here, if you mess up, there might be a chance to actually recover because of the new, more mixed styles of stealth and loud, where it'll just might move on to a more searchlight phase instead of just immediately going loud.
Of all skill levels and preferences will absolutely appreciate the developments in Payday 3's core loud gameplay loop. Most objectives can be completed in any order as you start to learn heist, just as Hostile Takeover introduced to Payday 2, and every objective seems to be more intuitive, detailed and engaging, with a lot less pointless waiting in this game as things have been made more interactive overall. I think this new objective philosophy can be witnessed in how drills have been reportedly called across most heists, with...
That's very nice. No drills. Drills were a pain in the ass. Who really wants to sit in a room and wait for a 6-minute drill to finish just so you can move on with the heist? The fact that they've gotten rid of the drills is just a really nice change.
New entry methods being prepared in their place. For example, the bank heist requires thermite, which is dropped in bundles by Bile. Not only is this a bit of an homage to the old First World Bank, but now the thermite has to be stoked in a sense, where if you overload it with too much at once, the fire will set off the sprinklers and interrupt your progress. On the art gallery, you'll be faced with more of a GTFO style area defense objective to access the paintings, with each specific one you're looking for requiring a different tool to actually ascertain its authenticity, from a mobile scanner to a UV light used to detect blood. Everything serves a purpose and never feels like pointless waiting or busy work, especially in stealth where that's even less forgivable.
It's just more fun. It sounds like having a bunch of different objectives that don't take as long or are less boring than a drill. Definitely no problem with that, because I've always hated drills. They've just been annoying. You sit there, you wait for a drill. Once the drill's done, then you can keep moving. They're just annoying to play around.
Another thing I love about Lad Heists is how they crescendo at the end with the final charge, an endless assault that you better be prepared for if you want to escape a heist in one piece and with all your crewmates. This punishes sluggish heisters, as certain objectives might have to be repeated if you're too slow on the escape, creating some moments of pure panic within your team. Both heists I've played in Loud seem to flow like that, starting with a war of attrition that plays out to force you into rash mistakes and wear out your resources over time, before things come to a head as the cops can sense you slipping away, requiring all your conserved tools and ammunition to actually stage the escape.
So, just an endless assault, a lot like Payday the Heists, where every single mission will end in some sort of endless assault, with the exception of Diamond Heist. I'm pretty sure is the only one where you just have to kinda rush for the escape because there's no breaks. You just have to get out as fast as possible or else you're gonna be overwhelmed.
I also need to praise the level design for how it plays perfectly into this concept, with heist environments often favouring the heisters early on, where the cops have to come toward you in tight interior spaces, before being forced out into the open, where cops can flank and spawn on all sides, such as out onto the main road or up on an expansive exposed rooftop. The game design is just so cohesive from what I've played so far, I'm really struggling to find anything to complain about. I'm not a massive fan of unmarked search objectives, such as with the mobile phones required on the art gallery, but in general, if an objective is unmarked, their spawn location can be learned from run to run, meaning this will only be a problem very early on in the lifespan of the game.
Now with unmarked objectives, it's like, you might think it's only going to be a problem at the start of the game's life cycle, where everyone's just getting into the game, but every time you get a new player, that new player is going to have to play the game until they learn those unmarked objectives, and just having to find those little things that are required to progress the game forward could be annoying to some people, and it might just put them off the game, because then they need to memorize small things just to have fun and progress. So I've never really enjoyed unmarked objectives, as long as they're marked after a certain amount of time, like after a couple of minutes and not being able to, just not having found it, just marking them with like an outline or something, or a marker would be nice, but, can't judge too much right now.
Overall, the combination of its incredibly tight gunplay, massively expanded arsenal of tactical options, intelligently designed specials that feel challenging but fair to deal with, and exceptionally well thought out level and objective design has left me immensely excited to finally get my hands on the full game and what other crazy innovations we can enjoy. As a base experience though, Payday 3's loud gameplay is simply shaping out to be a cut above what we've come to expect. Once again, thank you so much for watching.
Don't really know how it could be too much less. You just need to have guns that play well, objective that are enemies that are smart, and just have good cover and map design, and then there you've got decent gunplay at the very least. So just having really good gunplay would definitely make it a lot more fun. I personally see myself playing a lot of loud just because that's how I've always liked to play these, Payday in general. I've never really enjoyed stealth, but I will have to see how stealth plays out before I make my final decision on which I'm going to play the most.
Be sure to check out the other episodes in this pre-release series for a complete rundown of everything you can expect to see in Payday 3, and I'll see you all very soon for the next video.
Alright, so final thoughts. It just sounds like it's gonna be slightly modified that gameplay. Like, all the specials got some sort of update. Apart from the sniper relay, the sniper hasn't changed. The cloaker is going to be... the kick is going to be a lot different. There are just a lot less punishing, apart from the deployable acid thing, that I could definitely see ruining a heist. For, like, if you just don't notice that the cloaker destroyed your deployables, you go back, you need health, you go back to try and find it, no deployable there, and you see a cloaker standing over there and he kicks you in the face. That would be definitely a funny way to fail. Got the tasers, who also don't appear to have changed a whole lot. The bulldozers, which just seem like the tank enemies they're supposed to be. The grenadier, who is just a good area denial unit, which is going to be interesting to play around, because now you just can't sit in one spot, funnel all the cops towards you, kill them as they walk through the door. The shields also haven't changed too much. The new improved AI is definitely going to make them more interesting to have to deal with, but the gap in their shield makes it slightly more fair. So honestly, from this, it's just kind of been more of a confirmation of what we already know about the loud gameplay, but it's always nice to have that confirmation on how, like, most of it'll work. So, yeah, that was that analysis of Payday 3, The Art of Going Loud, and I'll see you guys back for the next dev diary, or when he releases the stealth video. So, see you guys then.